Ed eccoci qui.
Here we are talking about creme and glaze or English custard. It is a base for a lot of preparations in our pastry culture. We can use it as a base for mirror sauces, as a decoration. This is one of the first reasons it was used as a base where you would apply a monoportion dessert, for example. It is also used as a base for the Bavarian cream, for the creamy desserts, and also to make creme caramel. So by working with it, we can take advantage of its structure to then make many other preparations. The ones I just mentioned are the main products, the main desserts that need the creme and glaze to be made. So creme and glaze is very similar to pastry cream. The passages are quite similar, but we need to be more careful because we need to get to a temperature of around 82, 84 degrees, which is a la rose cooking. It's called like this because when it's finished, if you use a spoon and if you take a spoon and drizzle some of the cream on top of the cream itself, it kind of forms the shape of a rose, but you need some imagination to understand this. This is because in the past, pastry masters that had a technology and some tools that are not the ones we have today had to take advantage of the capacity of their bodies and minds to understand when the cream was ready. Clearly today it's easier for us, but we will still try to understand what the main stages of cooking of creme and glaze are. So again, we have our milk or milk and cream. Always remember that the addition, so adding fats allows us to have a smoother and velvety texture, but the organoleptic perception will be a little bit fatter in the mouth. We have egg yolks, we have castor sugar, and the aromas. And orange zest, lemon zest if you want, both if you want, and eventually vanilla. Sometimes I prefer not to use aromas because for me creme and glaze must be used in a peculiar product that I will aromatize later on. In many cases, creme and glaze might need a small part of starch or flour to thicken it slightly, but the main base of creme and glaze is without the use of starches or flour. So our basic tools are the same. So the casserole, here maybe the whisk won't be needed. We prefer to use a silicone spatula, our thermometer, and eventual sifters to filter the milk if you used some aroma. Fundamental passages: heating up the milk, again 1/3 of the sugar and the aromas. Remember that it's not necessary to boil the milk, so when I use this term it means harshly boiling. So heating up the milk with aromas and 1/3 of the sugar, then putting the egg yolks with the remaining part of the sugar, letting the sugar melt in our bowl. Then we're going to filter the milk in the bowl where we put yolks and sugar, going to melt it slightly and then back overheat. Here, very low heat, so you can either stop at 82, 84 degrees, having a bowl with ice that allows us to cool the temperature because you just need a few degrees up to completely break the cream and coagulation of the egg proteins. So you can either have something that allows you to cool down, so a cold water bath to stop the cooking, or you're going to stop before the 82 degrees, so removing the casserole from the heat before the 82 degrees. And this is mostly the main procedures to make a perfect creme and glaze. Always remember that after the cooking you're going to blast chill it with plastic film on top at plus 3 degrees, and then you can vacuum it and preserve it in your fridge. Remember that when you put a liquid in a vacuum bag and it has the density of kind of water, so it's very liquid, remember to use a vacuum that's suitable for liquids, because they're not the same things as solid. Vacuum machine has an action, in this case of air pressure in the first stage, and then it absorbs the air that it has pressed inside of the product, and apart from the air it will remove the humidity, and so you might break or block the machine. So always use the vacuum for the liquids. And this is the introduction explanation of creme and glaze. Now we will start with the demonstration part of our creme and glaze. So taking our aromas, so a bit of vanilla and a bit of lemon zest. Around 1/3 of the sugar. And put it on low heat to heat up. In the meantime, we're going to take our egg yolks with the remaining part of our sugar and mixing the whole thing. So mix thoroughly to favor the maximum melting of the sugar, because the cooking of our creme and glaze will be very quick. So we need to be sure that we are completely melting all of the sugar that's present inside. So always use your small sifter to filter the milk or the cream. So try to always have the same movement and the same direction in order to prevent too much air from incorporating into the eggs. Always check, as I explained before, the movement of the milk based on the type of thermal pressure. You will kind of understand that you're getting closer to the right temperature. So the milk temperature is right. We're going to filter it. Stirring the base to allow egg yolks, sugar and milk to mix homogeneously. Then we're going to put everything back in our casserole, scrape our bowl nicely, like this. So now we're going to put it back overheat with a thermometer, always rotating in the same direction, and touching the perimeter and the center of the casserole. In the first stage, the residue of the air you generated during the mixing will tend to go towards the surface. Since the air is a gas, it tends to move towards the top. So when you see that this foam, whitish foam, tends to disappear, what are you going to do? Is you're going to notice that the most yellow part will become more and more present. So it's always important to keep a low heat. So then you will notice that the yellow part will be more, and from a liquid density it will tend to thicken up, and this will kind of make you understand that you got to the right temperature. Always by scraping uniformly the bottom of the casserole with your spatula. If you have problems with your thermometer, you can every now and then just moving, as you can see, because I'm perceiving that it is that a yellow part is becoming more and more present, and it's thickening up. You can see that the whitish foam is starting to disappear. So by stirring, I'm realizing that the density is becoming thicker, so I can keep stirring outside of the heat. When I notice the density and notice that the white foam has disappeared, I'm going to put everything in my other bowl. How do I understand that I got to the right cooking point? This is very important. So when I perceived that the cream was ready, I removed it from the heat. We were at around 78, 79 degrees. I removed it from the heat. Outside of the heat, I kept stirring. Why? Because, as I said before, the cooking will go on. So when I put it inside my bowl, the residue in the casserole has started coagulating, as you can see. Here we have a beginning of coagulation. So it means that when I poured at 82, 84 degrees in the casserole, the temperature kept going up. So now we're going to put our plastic film, always touching the surface of the cream. So again, to avoid the formation of crusts or films on the surface of the cream, so the plastic must adhere completely. And now we're going to blast chill it at +3 degrees within 90 minutes. If you notice that you have more cream, maybe take a tray, a gastron with high borders, so that you can spread it. The sooner you blast chill it, the more you will have protection against bacteria proliferation. So, as I did, I stopped at around 78 degrees, removing from the heat, and keep stirring because the cream is still cooking. Then pour in a bowl and put the film. Or you can stop at 82 degrees, but you gotta have a bowl that's nice and cold, or maybe it is a bowl that is on top of some water and ice. Once your caramel glaze will be ready, we can then use it for all of the preparations that we need. Clearly, there are a lot of preparations, like for example creamy desserts, that don't need the English cream to be cold, but we can use it straight away. I hope we were clear enough with the explanation and the main mistakes you can make during creme and glaze preparation. Last little thing, If you lost your concentration, if some egg clump has formed, you can always filter the cream and start removing those grooms, those clumps uh, that can ruin the texture of the cream clearly at the beginning of the coagulation. And with this, we finished the demonstration about our creme and glaze.